Hi and welcome to this week's Three Legs, Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with...
Sean.
Chris.
Dan.
And Sean.
Hello, Sean.
Hey, welcome along, Sean. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening, tax dodgers.
And other listeners as well.
Yes.
yes. Tax-paying listeners are also welcome.
So how is life in the world of stats?
Well, it's very numbers heavy, of course. It's delightful, I guess. How is life in the world of stats? That's like when Father Ted asked Bishop Brennan, "How's life in the world of religion?"
Yeah, pretty much.
It's same old, really. I would say that we had once we got past the French Grand Prix, this was a tough season to sell to people because you're just thinking this is processional and predictable. And then since the French Grand Prix, it's like all hell's broken loose, isn't it? So, it's been a tale of two seasons, really, isn't it? It's like the first half, which is just so linear, and then since then, it's been like, wow, like every race has been an absolute banger.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I can't remember 6 races on the trot that were as sort of exciting and as action-packed as we've had in years.
Yeah, 6 races in a row.
Like
that, yeah.
I just want to interrupt and say that I'm told that this is not to do with F1. My buffalo cauliflower order has arrived. So buffalo cauliflower will be a plot device in today's podcast. In fact, here it comes now, jubilantly. Thank you. My grandma's assistant, also known as my wife, has arrived. There we go. So
buffalo cauliflower.
Extra. Thank you.
Worst
Extra
Bob Marley song ever.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, indeed so. We've got extra Russell-O-Matic paper because, of course, that works well in a podcast. Now, a certain individual who shall remain nameless as I crack open my buffalo cauliflower here was eating on the air in Australia. And we got text messages saying, "Can you hear that person eating on the air?" Yes, actually, we can. Because I was in Australia, I happened to be present at said eating, and everyone else in the booth was looking at each other, going, "Ha, is this a thing now?"
Do you eat in the booth?
Do you eat in the booth? Well, in homage to that person, I shall now eat my buffalo cauliflower dreadlock rasta.
Surely dreadlock pasta.
People prefer.
What was being eaten in the booth in Australia? What was making the noise?
I think it was an egg salad sandwich.
Oh, no.
It was certainly
Not a
it was certainly
food, you would think.
It was certainly a sandwich, and what was funny is that you would think, wouldn't you, in the wonderful world of Formula One, it would be so professional that if you're going to eat, you don't be speaking, you're not going to compensate while eating. Alas, in this case, not true. The person involved went, "Oh, there's Pierre Gasly. Red Bull." He's taking bites out of the sandwich, and it's like, and we're all looking at each other like, "Wow, this is intense." Like,
It's quite ballsy. First race of the season.
yes, that's what we thought. We were like, "Wow, is this how it's done? And we've been doing it wrong all this time."
Are we going to have to rewatch this race now and see if we can spot it in the commentary?
No, I guarantee you, for reasons that shall remain anonymous to protect the people involved,
It's gone.
You will not hear it on any broadcast, whether you tune into Sky, Channel 4, F1 TV, or wherever. I can guarantee you it was not there. So yes, it was a hilarious moment, and it became like a running thing for the rest of the weekend. Like, have you got your sandwiches? So as soon as qualifying starts, we'll tuck in.
Amazing.
I don't know where to go from there. We've got a running order, but that's just thrown it out the window completely.
Well, what's the first item on the vague running order?
The first thing that's written down is above the original first thing that's written down because Mercedes have just launched their Formula E team with their lineup. I know you've been doing a lot of work for Formula E over the last season, Sean. Any opinions on Mercedes sort of finally putting the full team out and
Picking up the scraps from McLaren.
yeah, and getting involved full time rather than sort of the testing the water with the HWA entry?
Well, I think it's just the next step in where we thought Formula E was going after the first couple of seasons. Once they navigated their way through the first 2 seasons to the point where they were financially stable, that they weren't going to go the same way as A1 Grand Prix, for instance. Once they'd done that, it seemed pretty obvious that more and more manufacturers are going to jump on board, because it became a cause célèbre for manufacturer boardrooms around the world. And once you had the likes of Jaguar and Renault, of course now Nissan, and these sorts of people, you're thinking, oh, that's interesting, that these manufacturers would stake their reputation on this series. But the floodgates really opened once the big German manufacturers got interested. Audi, then BMW, and then Porsche and Mercedes-Benz, and you're thinking, wow, okay, now we've hit critical mass. Now you've got these big manufacturers. It's turned from being should we get involved to who are we if we're not involved?
Yeah.
And the ultimate company to get involved would be Ferrari. I've made this point a few times before, that if Ferrari got involved in Formula E, that would give it a certain respect is the word, I guess. Because you think if Ferrari get involved with that on a works level, when they won't get involved on a works level in, say, sports car racing or IndyCar, then they move to the next level. So you could say that, let's see what the Fiat Ferrari people do. Maybe they won't send Ferrari. Maybe it'll be like Maserati or something like that, or some related brand. But it is impressive, I think, that what Formula E have been able to do to attract so many manufacturers. Of course, yes, it's a lot cheaper. I forget the exact value of the car. I think it has to be, the whole thing has to be worth less than 870,000 euros,
okay,
which for a top line international motorsport is pretty affordable. And once they move to one car to do the whole once they do one car that will do the whole race, that instantly halved the freight and the freight and the running costs, because you didn't need 2 cars anymore. So once they got past that bit as well, you're thinking, wow, the whole thing is coming to them in terms of where we're going in the next generation.
It's been a lot better, hasn't it, as well, the second generation, the keeping the updates to the cars they made. Was it before this season or was it last season they did Gen 2?
It was this season just gone with the changes.
It was a new Gen 2. It's worked for them.
Yeah, it's good that, I think what Alejandro Agag has been very good at doing is avoiding making it look like Formula One. They with the exception of Monaco, of course, but Monaco's kind of a law unto itself. If you've got, again, Monaco's like the Ferrari of tracks. If you've got Monaco in your calendar, it affords a credibility to your championship that other tracks don't give you. So having that's there, that's a glamour fixture. But also, if you look at the other places they've been to, they've really tried, where possible, to not just make it look like a slow version of Formula One. And they've been to interesting racetracks like Marrakesh, which I see that might be dropping off the calendar, which I think is a real shame. Marrakesh is the fastest track on the calendar. And it's one of the few racetracks where Formula E cars can really be thrown around a little bit. A lot of these tracks are a little bit Mickey Mouse, like the one in Hong Kong, which is very slow. Marrakesh has a lot of flowing corners, which, if it was a Formula One car, you would think this is just, this is a nothing corner. But in a Formula E car, it's much more challenging. So I hope they continue to go to tracks that are like that, and it would be a shame if they lose Marrakesh.
Although they do need to make a few changes to the circuit in Bern, with that chicane just after the start. What was it, the 19-car pile-up we had before turn 1?
Yes, indeed. Well, it's all part of the fun in Formula E, isn't it? A big massive pile-up and a chicane on lap 1. I think we had 4 red flags this year. Related to pile-ups, and we'd had one in the first 4 seasons, and then we had 4 this year. So for whatever reason, they got a little bit more aggressive with their driving this year. I don't know whether it's because the pit stops went away and the car change went away and there's no chance to undercut your rival in the pit stops or what, but they do need to calm down a little bit on those first laps. But it is aided by having a racetrack where you don't have a ridiculously tight corner halfway around the first lap.
Yeah, with what you were saying before about Ferrari, if they were to throw their weight behind a Formula E team, that would give it a certain credence. With Sergio Marchionne was saying that they were going to put Maserati in Formula E. Obviously, nothing's materialised since then, and obviously all of his plans will have changed. But with Mercedes being the five, is it at the moment? 5-time champions? I'm losing count of how many championships they've won.
Soon to be 6.
Exactly, yeah. With them going to Formula E to have a go at that, with a driver lineup of 2 drivers that they clearly rate quite highly, who one of whom
McLaren don't.
Yeah, well, obviously Nick De Vries didn't make it to Formula One. Stoffel Van Dorn had a bash, perhaps a little unfairly in McLaren, but didn't really make a dent in Formula One. Is that not enough, do you think, for Formula E to really be taken seriously by the Formula One crowd, who are still naysaying Formula E, of which I'm ashamed to say I was one some time ago?
Well, I was one too. I mean, in the run-up to the very first race, Beijing 2014, I was among the people who was thinking, this is never going to work. You've got to be kidding me. Like the car, you watch the pre-season test at Donington, and they're tooling around slower than a Formula Ford car, and you're thinking, I don't see how this is ever going to pull a crowd. Why would anybody show up to watch this?
Yeah.
What I missed out on is the fact that they're not racing on tracks like Donington Park. They're racing on tracks in the city.
Yeah,
where everybody's up close to the action, and because they're going slow, the spectators are going to be up close to the racetrack, and it's much more. It's a much different beast to what normal petrol engined racing is as a result, and they've carved their own niche with that. It doesn't necessarily surprise me that there's still aloofness from the Formula One community, because Formula One is aloof. Formula One's aloof about everything. If you ever go to an airport the day after a Grand Prix, the morning after a Grand Prix, you will find that the line at the check-in for the people with platinum status, it's longer than the economy check-in, because it's about status. That's what Formula One is. We're all about status. I'm not disqualifying myself. So it's always a case of, we are more elite than you, and we're going to show you. So it doesn't surprise me necessarily that Formula One people are aloof to the whole thing. But at the same time, I don't see why Formula E ultimately won't be the savior of Formula One. Now, people have laughed at me when I've said that. But I think that Formula E's clean credentials, clean industry credentials, battery credentials, will ultimately allow F1 to get back to being, as I've said many times before, the hard, it's almost like the hard drinking rock star, shag your sister sort of, that sort of excitement of like danger and all that sort of stuff. Formula One doesn't need to be completely obsessed with its clean industry credentials or its ability to sell road cars. That's what Formula E can do. So hopefully Formula One can actually benefit from Formula E being there as a supplementary series, because then you're not worrying about, does this translate to a road car? Well, who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's something that Bernie Ecclestone said as well, wasn't it? That what you just said there. I think he said that he was a little bit ruder about it. I think he said that we'll get on with the racing whilst Formula E gets on with saving the world, essentially.
Normally that's Bernie's job, of course, saving the world.
We all know how good he is at that.
Well, I'd say Liberty Media are probably missing him at times like this.
Yeah.
The honeymoon period's over now. Now we're getting down to the serious business, and we're realizing that Formula One is very complicated politically. And say what you want about Bernie Ecclestone, but he knew the game inside out, and he could play everybody like a fiddle when he needed to, which is a very handy thing to have.
Yeah, we noticed that he'd only just recently, well, obviously he doesn't turn up to every race anymore, but he's only just recently started wearing the new F1 logo shirts, because I think it was up until even earlier this season, he was still wearing his shirt with the old F1 logo on it, even though they did the big reveal last year. He's like, no, this is still my shirt, I'm still my show.
I didn't realize he was wearing the new logo, actually.
Yeah, he started wearing it. Was the last time we saw him. What race was that, Paul? You spotted it. Was it Silverstone?
I think it might have been Silverstone, yeah.
Might have been at Silverstone.
Was he at Silverstone? I didn't see him there. I was in the paddock for that. I must have missed him. But I almost
it's more
didn't
likely
miss
that
him.
we've got that wrong.
I nearly spectacularly did not miss him in Abu Dhabi. Sky Sports were on the air doing their pre-race show in the paddock in Abu Dhabi last year, and I was walking up the walking up the paddock, and I saw the cameras were pointing in my direction, because I was walking up behind them. So I thought, I'll do the Alfred Hitchcock thing where you walk briefly out of the back of the shot just to prove you were there. And at the last minute, I ducked around them, and I realized I was ducking right into Flavio Briatore. So I thought, oh, well, I don't want to bump into him. That could be an international incident. So I'll duck around him. And then, I was keeping my eyes on Flavio as I was going past. I'll go around him. And then I nearly rugby tackled Bernie, who was the next person around, because I was so busy looking like, don't knock Flavio over, that I nearly knocked Bernie over instead. I thought, wow, okay, that could have been the end of a career right there.
It'd be easier to knock Bernie over than Flavio, though, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, we used to see him at Indy every year with these huge bodyguards, the kind of ones that accompany Britney Spears when she goes to Rodeo Drive for shopping, those sorts of ones. And I remember Bob Varsha, who's got one of the driest sense of humours in Formula One, saying to us, "What do you suppose they're going to do if there's trouble? Will they just pick him up and run?"
Are they retired college footballers? And they just go,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, what have we got next? Williams signing the new Mercedes deal. Mercedes will be powering Williams until 2024.
Yeah.
Shame they haven't got the Mercedes designing the car until then as well.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the Mercedes power doesn't appear to have the leverage over, the customer teams. Doesn't appear to have the leverage that it used to have. Or at least it doesn't mean what it used to mean. In a straight line, you would say, the Racing Point and the Williams would be by far superior to the Renault powered cars, the Honda powered cars, and even the Ferrari powered cars in the few seasons gone by. But that's just not the case now. Williams and Racing Point, especially, I don't know if it's less of a complete package, but it's just not. It's
the Mercedes engine isn't making the difference anymore.
No, it used to make the difference, and it isn't. And I don't. But what do you think, Sean? Is that the way that everybody else has caught up, or is it more of a complete package thing with the customer engines?
Well, first off, I want to say this Buffalo Cauliflower is fantastic. I switched my microphone off while you were talking then, so I could just get tucked in. And thumbs up from me. So the 3 legs, 4 wheels culinary challenge, Buffalo Cauliflower, definitely dreadlock Rasta. So, sure. Could you just talk amongst yourself while I just finish chewing this bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not a problem.
I'm just Googling recipes for Buffalo
I have just
Cauliflower
Googled it
now.
also, yes.
Right. This episode is brought to you by Buffalo Cauliflower.
It is.
Okay, I'm finished now.
Absolutely.
So Williams and Mercedes. I do agree that there was a point 5 years ago where having a Mercedes engine definitely afforded you a lot of advantage. It wasn't the be-all and end-all of everything, but certainly it was a much bigger advantage than it is now. Williams, of course, are the only team this season who have finished every race with both cars. They haven't suffered a retirement. And as somebody, some great wit said on Twitter the other day, to finish last, first you must finish. But
well, yeah.
Yeah, you got to be in it to win it. I mean, look, Robert Kubica got a point at Hockenheim by simply not falling off the road. So, that's really all Williams are going to be capable of doing right now. But it does afford stability. At least they know definitely when they go to sponsors A, B, and C, hey, we've got the Mercedes engine for the next few years. We definitely know what engine we're designing around.
Yeah.
It does. There's one less thing to worry about. And Williams have got a lot of other things to worry about right now. At least the engine supplier isn't one of them.
Yeah. There were sniffs that they might have been sniffing out Renault for a little while to see what what deal they could get there, but it's probably positive for them that they decided to stick with Mercedes going forward. I don't know if another team might be willing to take a gamble on Honda with the gains they've made since they joined the Red Bull family.
Well, when it comes to Honda, I would say that the gains that they've had with the Red Bull Toro Rosso link-up perhaps aren't necessarily gains so much as that the working relationship with McLaren was so bad all along that it masked what Honda were actually capable of doing. because of course McLaren were very exacting about the design they wanted for that engine originally. Sorry, power unit. We'll say power unit now.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I said engine. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
power unit. Yeah.
But once they moved to Toro Rosso, it became obvious that, look, this engine isn't anywhere near as bad as you've been led to believe. It's just now that we're out of a bad marriage. Turns out I'm not such a bad guy. Is that, it's kind of like that sort of thing.
But
So
both Honda and McLaren seem to get better by separating.
Yes, but it was clearly obvious that all the McLaren's protestations about, we've got the third best chassis if we just had a decent engine was not true.
Rubbish.
Exactly. So Honda got the rough end of the stick on that one, and that's why I was so pleased for them when they won in Austria, because you thought, well, there's a lot of guys there have been through a lot, and they've had a lot shoved at their door, including, full disclosure, from me, because there were definitely times where you thought, look, you can't even get an engine round the outlaps of the grid. The first race they did, Melbourne 2015, Kevin Magnussen lost an engine in the first third of a lap.
Yeah.
So, some of it was on them, but to see them actually turn it round, and now be at the point where a Honda's running at the front of a race and no one really bats an eyelid is, just like old times. When it comes to Williams sounding out Renault, I can't help but feel as though that would be nothing more than seeing if Renault were interested in a closer working relationship. Like, would you give us a discount on the engine, for instance? Because I haven't seen anything in the data this year that suggests that Renault are a better engine than Mercedes, to be honest.
No.
Sure, it's fine, but I don't know why you would want to throw away a Mercedes deal unless Mercedes are charging you 20 million a year and you might get a Renault for 11 million instead. In that case, the Renault looks great.
Unless, of course, Williams are getting some kind of discount off George Russell, and that was likely to end soon.
Ooh.
Also that, yes. That could also be the case.
But when the contract's coming to an end, you're going to talk to the other suppliers just to say, what can you do, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you just test the market? Like, do I want to stay with this? Like, as it's a customer deal, what are we getting out of it? Do Renault want to do something where it's a little bit more of a closer working relationship, that sort of thing? Who knows?
Maybe the kind of closeness in the relationship with Renault that Cyril Abiteboul has with a microphone, usually. That close.
Well, he hasn't. Has he been on 3 legs, 4 wheels yet?
Just now.
Yeah. That was him.
Well, I think. Yeah, right. Well, we'll know. Yeah, that's when we'll know how close to the mic he is, when he's a guest on this show.
Yeah.
Because you're nobody in Formula One until you've been onto this show. Even Buffalo Cauliflowers now been on this show. So.
Exactly. Buffalo Cauliflower is going to go global now.
I think we know what our race snack is on Sunday now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
actually, no,
that's a
I'm
hashtag
right.
For this episode.
I'm cycling around the TT course twice on Sunday, so I'm going to miss the
You're
race
gonna
and the
miss
Buffalo Cauliflower.
You don't have to miss. You don't have to miss the food. What are you talking about?
There's feeding stations, isn't there?
There are, yeah.
Yeah, get the future Mrs. Dan out with a bag of Buffalo Cauliflower as you go past.
Absolutely.
Do it. Absolutely.
What have we got next? Robert Kubica, Audi DTM interest. Do you think that's more of Audi just sounding him out? Or
I think-
Audi have said they've spoken to him.
And I think it'd be hard for him to stay in Formula One. I mean, it's great that he came back. Brilliant that he came back. But it's hard to know where he is with that Williams. Really. It's a tough one to be able to tell.
Well, I would contend that it's easy to know where he is because he's had his ass completely handed to him by George Russell this year, in no uncertain terms. And if he was any other driver, let's say let's change his name to Lance Stroll. Now, if the driver of that car changed his name to Lance Stroll, everybody would say this guy's absolutely useless. He's a donkey. Get him out of the seat right away.
Yeah.
But because he's Robert Kubica, this sounds harsh, but he's kind of trading on the whole fairy tale story at this stage. Now, remember that Renault tested him at the Hungaroring in, what was it, 2017?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
And everybody thought that Renault were going to take him on and continue the deal that they had with him in 2010. And in the end, they passed. They decided, no, not having it. And of course, I think Williams had the same thing.
Yeah, They passed it
Williams,
first time, didn't they?
They passed at the first attempt. They went with Sorokin instead because everybody thought, oh, well, it's all sponsorship, isn't it? You know, Sorokin's got all the oligarch millions, blah, blah, blah. But you have to say, Sorokin was probably more impressive than Kubica has been this season. Yeah, I know the car's bad, but Sorokin had his moments in 2017 and Kubica hasn't. Do you know Robert Kubica's run in the top 10 for a grand total this season of 1 lap?
And that was the last lap at Hockenheim.
No, it wasn't even that because he only got the point because the Alphas were disqualified.
Oh, of course, yeah. With Giovinazzi and Raikkonen, yeah, of course, yeah.
So he did run 10th for 1 lap at Hockenheim, but it wasn't the last lap, which kind of annoys me as a stats guy because I really wanted to say that Kubica's got a point this season without ever running in the top 10, which is a much more cryptic statistic. But yeah, he's done 1 lap in the top 10. But that says a lot. He's been out-qualified by Russell at every race. Russell's supposed to be a rookie.
Was it 1.3 seconds Russell was faster than him at the Hungaroring?
Yeah, I mean, George Russell, who I think George Russell has been one of the outstanding drivers of the season for the connoisseur. You know, he's not Charles Leclerc, because of course Leclerc getting all the headlines up at the front. Russell's done a superb job. Can anybody tell me any instance where you've heard George Russell say, "Oh, the car's terrible. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it." Exactly.
I think that's his ultimate strength is his ability to just keep his cool and just okay. Even early season, he was just like, well, I had a good fight with Robert in the opening few laps, and then a bit of a lonely race after that. But we'll push on and we move forward to the next race. He's always positive, and I think that's held him in such good stead over the season. And the fact that he's made very few, if zero, mistakes. I can't think of a.
His season
did agree
this year,
to appear on this show.
He did agree to appear on the show. Yeah.
He has been on this show.
He has.
There you go. You see, maybe not. Maybe it's not Big Cyril, but it's getting there. But yes, he has impressed me in a manner that I would say reminds me a lot of Fernando Alonso at Minardi in 2001, whereby he was given a car that he had almost no chance of doing anything noteworthy with, and yet achieved something noteworthy. For me, with Alonso in 2001, it was the qualifying at the first race in Melbourne, where we all went, wow, he got more out of that car than I think Minardi thought was in it.
Yeah.
And I think this year for Russell, it was the Hungaroring qualifying, when he was only 63 thousandths, I think, away from getting into Q2 in a car that is a dog. And the attitude is there. He has the attitude of a champion. He doesn't whinge. He doesn't say, well, this team's beneath me, or he doesn't say anything stupid. He just gets his head down and gets on with it. And from everything I've heard from people who work with him in F2 said the same. He was always super easy to work with, always positive, always thinking, okay, how do we make it better? What do we do? Not just throwing the toys out the pram.
Yeah.
And I hope that his perseverance is rewarded at some point down the line here. I'd hate to see him go the same way as Stoffel Vandoorne, who wiped the floor with people in GP2, but yet when he got to F1, it all sort of went a bit pear-shaped for him, and we lost that big talent that Vandoorne so obviously possessed. Hopefully that doesn't happen with Russell, and he gets the kind of seat that his talent obviously warrants.
Do you think that Kubica has had his ass handed to him by George Russell because George Russell is just that good, as well as Kubica being a bit,
just that bad,
a bit below par? Let's be honest.
Well, tough luck, I'd say.
Yeah.
Was Vandoorne that bad, or was Fernando Alonso that good? It doesn't matter. Vandoorne's not in Formula One anymore.
No.
So that's just the way it goes. When you're paired with these drivers, it can finish careers. Just ask Michael Andretti.
Yep.
Yeah, true. We've got to ask this in as Lee isn't here. Do you think we'll see Fernando Alonso back in F1?
I'd say the odds are against it. I think it needs it. It would need to be a good seat, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't want to join. Like, if Racing Point approached him, he's not going to join Racing Point and just tool around in the midfield again. He's done enough of that. But it is a shame the way his career has panned out, because his numbers were staggering up to a point. And I still think his best seasons were the ones where he didn't win the championship. I think the best season I saw him drive was probably 2012.
Yeah.
Which many of us in the paddock have said, is that the best season ever driven by any driver that didn't win a championship, because he was so good in a car that was so bad that it should have been nowhere near winning a championship, and he took it to the last race of the season. So there were several instances in his late Ferrari career where I thought he reminds me of Senna in the early 90s McLarens that were off the pace, hanging on for dear life, driving it quicker than it should go. Yeah, it's a shame if Alonso doesn't come back. It's a bit of a waste, but I guess never say never. You know, don't think many people saw Nico Rosberg suddenly retiring on the spot in 2016.
No.
And of course, I'm sure Alonso's ears went up when that happened the one day, and we all thought, why didn't they put Alonso in the Mercedes? And then they didn't. So, yeah, the opportunity may have gone now, unfortunately, but it would be. I would love to see him do a full IndyCar schedule. Actually, I think for IndyCar it'd be massive. It'd be the biggest thing that happened to IndyCar since Nigel Mansell went to IndyCar, and I'm surprised that they haven't made it happen, because his draw, the ability of him to draw numbers like no other driver that would go to IndyCar is fantastic. I remember in the 2017 Indy 500 practice sessions that were on YouTube, because Alonso was taking part, they registered a 987% increase in traffic watching the live YouTube sessions.
Wow!
Just because Alonso was there.
We were
now, the reason I remember.
Here.
The reason I remember that exact number is because Alonso retweeted my tweet on the subject. So I particularly remember that one.
Do you get retweeted by drivers, current drivers or previous? Does that happen often, or is it just a case of, you throw stats out there and sometimes they get picked up on?
Teams pick up on it. Teams, Pirelli. I mean, a lot of the stuff I do is retweeted, in a third party way, because I work with so many broadcasters and with Formula One themselves. A lot of the time they'll tweet something out that has some content that I've written or composed in some way, and then that gets retweeted, but people don't necessarily know that it was me who came up with it. I guess only the real hardcore anoraks retweet stuff that I actually come right from my own account.
You mean like the four of us?
Yeah.
Indeed so.
Although Sky were bigging you up by name on the show. I think it was during qualifying, during the last race.
Yes, I heard about this. What did they say?
I can't remember what it was, but Crofty was going on about some particular stat that you'd come out with that had amazed him, and everyone should follow you on Twitter because you were always coming out with things like that, and you were an unsung hero.
Wow. Well, not enough respect in that area to David Croft, I'd say. I suspect he was referring to my analysis of why it wasn't the 90th Italian Grand Prix.
I think that was it. The Phantom race.
Because
we had one race that was missed. Yeah.
Yes, because in the pack that I'd sent to the broadcasters, I'd said this is the 89th running of the Italian Grand Prix, and then the next day, the organizer said we're celebrating the 90th Italian Grand Prix, and I thought, no, you're not. Hang on there a minute, Mr. Official Source. This is the 89th race. What's happened? So what I did was I sent a message to Michele Merlino, who's one of the leading lights within Forex and a major statistician for Italian sport. Said, Michele, what do you reckon here? It's like 90th running. I make it 89. What do you think? And he said, actually, yes. This is an interesting one, isn't it? Where's that come from? And then we got involved, and we brought David Hayhoe into the conversation, who's the author of The Knowledge, which is a fantastic Formula One reference book, which I think anybody who's really interested in F1 history should absolutely have that book. Brought him in, and we brought João Paulo Cunha in, who was actually the boss of Forex. So we had a real,
wow.
we had a proper power email chain going on, talking about where's this come from, what's the origin, and we traced it to. It could have been one of two things. It could have been the 1930 Monza Grand Prix, which was not the Italian Grand Prix. It was called the Monza Grand Prix. We thought it was that, but then we discarded it because we realized Michele brought old copies of Gazzetta dello Sport from
How
the
old?
40s.
From the 40s?
From the 1940s, yeah. Yeah, again, this is like microfilm stuff,
This is proper old school research. There's no Googling going on here, is there?
This went into some detail, this thing we were doing. And it said, the 1944 race is the whatever it was, the 21st. Okay, so we've counted 20 to that point. So it's happened before then. Eventually, we tracked it down to the 1940 race. The 1940 Italian Grand Prix was announced as a race. Then all the other races in Italy were cancelled due to the outbreak of World War II. But the Italian Grand Prix was still on. And then eventually, as the war escalated, the Italian Grand Prix itself was cancelled. And when racing resumed in Italy in 1946, the ordinal number of the race reflected that the 1940 event had in fact taken place. So what you ended up with was this phantom race whereby, okay, whatever it was, however many runners, like the 15th Italian Grand Prix in 1940, never happened. The 16th Italian Grand Prix was in 1946, however many it was. I forget the number.
Yeah.
So then that's where that anomaly had got into it, and it had stuck right through to the present day. So it was necessary to explain this to everybody because I had pointed out that it's the 89th running. So I couldn't just leave all the broadcasters without any explanation as to why that had happened. So that's how we ended up with, that's how, I suspect that's what Crofty was explaining on the air, is how we arrived at this explanation. Because we also had to appease the organisers. It wasn't going to do us any favours to tell the organisers, hey, Pillocks, you counted wrong.
They wanted it
so
to coincide with the Ferrari
Yeah, it
thing,
suits
didn't
Ferrari, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, they did. So we had to revise it as saying, look, it's the 90th edition of the Italian Grand Prix, the 89th running. We've had 18. This is the 89th running plus the one race that didn't happen in 1940 because of the World War. And that's the nomenclature we use after that. It's the 90th edition of the Italian Grand Prix.
And has Monza's been on the calendar of every year of Formula One? Was it except for 1 year, or was it?
Yes. Do you know which year?
1980.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah,
Very
1980.
good. Tenor to
Tell
Sean
who
on the back
writes
road
the
there.
previews on the website.
Yes. Who won that race then?
Oh, I can't remember that bit.
The 1980 Italian Grand Prix.
Yes.
Alan Jones.
No, the other one. Nelson Piquet.
Oh, it was going to be one of
From
them.
Nelson Piquet from fifth on the grid, I believe it was, at Imola in 1980. And yes, that was the only time that the race left Monza in the championship era.
He's just total shunted us.
Yeah. Do you know who that was? Yeah, no, I didn't know.
Well, sometimes I like to freestyle.
Right, we're gonna drop the first of tonight's total shunts in. This
Is this for all of us, or is this for Sean?
Everyone can join in, but this one has been
But
has been done
realistically,
with.
Sean's the only one who's going to actually know it.
Yeah,
is what you're saying here.
This one's been done with Sean in mind. Let me just make sure I've got the
Good Lord.
right one. Okay. First clue. I was born. Oh, by the way, this is from Gregory Blanton. So thank you for sending this one in, Gregory. I was born in 1958.
So remember, Sean, this can be a thing, or an object, or a company, or anything associated with motorsport.
So this is
doesn't have to be a person.
That is true.
So this is an entity in its 61st year.
Okay, so is
Whether
it the
it's a
Formula One
person or-
Constructors Championship?
It isn't.
Ah.
My birth year is an extremely important year in the history of my country.
Right.
Well, that is an interesting one.
The-
Any offers from the table?
No.
Well, it was 1917, wasn't it, that Finland became an official country? So it's a long time before then. So we're not talking about.
So we're just saying pick years of independence of countries and
Well,
hope
I'm
for the
trying
best.
to. Yeah, 1950. I can't think of.
I'm trying to remember because there was a glut of graffiti around the Isle of Man a few years back where people were graffitiing the names of countries and the years that they gained independence as some kind of like Manx independence movement, and I'm sure there was a 1958, but I can't remember which country it was.
Well,
So,
nonetheless,
half a story.
I am none the wiser so far. Continue.
We need another clue, I think.
Okay. Clue number 3. I participated in 4 Formula One seasons.
So we could be looking at a driver or a team or
Or a country.
Yeah, or a clerk of the course.
Or a racetrack.
Do you know what? Some of the people that have been thrown our way, Sean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a marshal, who stood at turn 2 at Suzuka or something.
Yeah. So where are we up to? Go recap here. Born in 1958.
Born in 1958.
It's an important year for their country.
And participated in 4 Formula One seasons.
So if we're looking at a driver, if they were born in 58, so we're looking at somebody who probably drove 80s, early 90s, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
If it's a driver.
Yeah, I appreciate these suitably vague clues on display so far. If it was born in 58 and there was constructor, there'd be 89, 58, 59, 60, and 61. Nothing's coming to pass to me as an obvious constructor of that time. Continue.
Okay. Clue 4. I am best known for my association with the French Grand Prix.
Oh. Okay.
Is that the laugh that says you've got it, Sean?
No.
I'm not great on French history. Is 1958 a particularly significant year in the history of France?
Guess it must have been. Might have been the year that Charles de Gaulle became the president of France. Is it Rouen les Essarts?
We'll move on.
Because Sean's got it right.
I was directly involved in the accident that cost Helmut Marko his vision in one eye.
Oh yeah, that was the one I was talking about a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's the circuit.
It's
at Rouen.
Clermont-Ferrand. It's Clermont-Ferrand.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the clue I thought I'd get. I thought you would get that one on.
Yeah, Lee didn't
I can't
realise.
I can't believe I got the wrong track there.
Yeah, Lee didn't realise until a few weeks ago that Helmut Marko was actually a driver, and I had to explain to him what happened to Helmut Marko and why he's got the glass eye, and I kind of got the story a little bit wrong.
Yeah, Lee just thought it was a Bond villain.
Yeah, Lee just thought it was just this guy who came along and just fired people all the time. It's like, he was actually a driver.
There are a lot of people who think Helmut Marko was a Bond villain. Ask Scott Speed, Pierre Gasly, Danny Kvyat.
Danica V's like an elastic band. He just keeps coming back for more.
I know. Good for him. He's the comeback king, Danny Kvyat. He really is.
Yeah.
Good for him. He's one of the feel good stories of the year. But we digress. Yeah, I am a bit annoyed at myself that I got Rouen mixed up with Clermont-Ferrand, because Rouen I think was on the calendar in '52 the first time, and I thought it had 5 runnings of the race. I didn't realise we only had 4 at Clermont-Ferrand, which is I overthought that one. Damn it. I tell you what it is. It's all that buffalo cauliflower. Has anybody had any buffalo cauliflower during this podcast? It really is terrific. I wash it down with this lovely English breakfast tea now.
Nice.
Right, where are we? It was a Goodwood revival this weekend.
It was.
We are going to have to get ourselves over there one year. Have you ever been to any of the Goodwood festivals, Sean? Either the Festival of Speed or the revival meeting?
I've not. I've had invites to do it. But living here in America, it's always a case of, it's like I'm doing other stuff. I've got other stuff going on. Like, it's kind of one of those things where, and this sounds very hoity-toity, but I'm not getting paid to do it. So you think, do I really want to travel on an off weekend when I do enough travels as it is? I'll go 1 year. I tell you what, 1 year it'll happen. Or I happen to be in Britain when it's happening, and I'll think, yeah, I should go. Totally.
Yeah.
But that hasn't come to pass yet, unfortunately, which is a shame, because it looks both the Festival of Speed and the Revival look like terrific fun. I actually think the Revival meeting looks even more fun when you've got to wear the period costume and everything.
Yeah, it does look like a more engaging experience, should we say, more fun for the people who go and have a look. Although the Festival of Speed, I was going to say, the Festival of Speed, I really enjoyed watching that electric Volkswagen car go up in record-breaking time, but it didn't actually count because they didn't do it on the last day.
Nonsense. I was watching something on television the other day that I thought was the Goodwood Revival meeting, because everybody was dressed in period costume. Turns out it was Jacob Rees-Mogg. They're easily confused, the Chancellor of the Duchy.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I noticed was there was more flat caps than I'm actually used to seeing, even when I go back home to Yorkshire.
Hey, right, you couldn't pick Nigel Mansell out of a parade at the Goodwood Revival, could you?
Not a chance.
Probably not. No, everybody would be dressed just like Nigel. That's one of the abiding memories of the pictures from the 80s was Mansell in his red overalls, Red Williams overalls, with his flat cap on.
What an absolute pimp.
Did you see the big mural at Monza last week with every Ferrari driver to have won a race that was painted on there, and Mansell had his flat cap on in the painting.
No, I didn't see that. No.
Yeah, I put it on our site. I think it might have been the race review, or possibly the live qualifying blog.
Nice, yeah, because he wore the flat cap right up until early, 91, 92,
yeah,
ish. So
he was still wearing it when he was at McLaren.
Was he?
Even
Really?
95? Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Ron let him get away with it, or did Ron redesign it to make it slightly more aerodynamic?
He didn't redesign Mansell to make it more aerodynamic, though, did he?
He did not. No. I remember a journalist at the start of that year when Mansell was announced as a McLaren driver. There was a journalist. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been off the record anyway, so maybe I shouldn't be saying. But a journalist said, "Give it 4 races. I'll give it 4 races that Mansell will do at McLaren before the whole thing will blow up and it'll all end in a fight."
Then you do 5,
and he did 2. So, and Patrick Head once said to Joe Ramirez, Joe, I can't tell you how to handle Nigel. You're just going to have to live the experience. Trust me. Yes, and certainly live it. They did. But of course, Nigel in the right atmosphere. No, I've never seen a driver who was more box office than Nigel Mansell. So exciting, it just not just in the on-track stuff, but the off-track stuff. He was always exciting on track because he was one of those drivers who could end up in the fence on the first lap or could win it on the last lap. Similar to Max Verstappen would be the facsimile of him now, but Mansell brought more box office stuff to the on-track stuff because there was so much drama going on and everything. He was like a soap opera, and it made it all so exciting. He made me a fan of Formula One because of that. So I temper my criticisms of Nigel with that remark as well, that he also brought something very special to F1.
Yeah, when I went to the Nigel Mansell Museum in Jersey a couple of years ago now, I spent a lot of time just sat in front of the FW14B that he's got in the museum, just staring at it, thinking, this for me is the car that I idolized this car as a kid, and I watch Formula One now because of this car that's right in front of me. And I spent a lot of time just sat there staring at the car. People must have thought I was crazy because they were listening to the audio tour and going around the whole museum, and I was like, hang on a second, I'm just going to take an hour just to be with this car.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story about how I ended up in the Williams storeroom the one day by myself?
I don't think so.
No.
This was 15 years ago, 2004, and I was composing a book on the Williams FW14B, and I visited the factory, and they didn't take me to the museum. They took me to the storeroom, which had all of their old sort of leftover cars. And I walked in, and it was like Aladdin's cave. There was everything from 1978 up until 1996 was in this room.
Really?
Yeah. So you'd look under a tarp, and there's Keke Rosberg's world title winning 82 car. And then you'd look under another tarp, and there'd be the Turbo 87 car. And some of these cars had engines in as well. Some of them were in full running condition.
Wow.
And one of the cars we had was one of the cars that was out with the tarp off, actually on the shop floor, was the 93 car. Now, bear in mind, I'm the only person in the room other than Steve Wise, who's one of the gearbox mechanics. And we're basically just fiddling about with all this stuff that's worth gazillions. It's worth it, in just terms of its parts, it's worth a fortune. But in terms of its historical value, it's worth even more. And we're just dicking about, like we're like going into the cockpit and moving the switches around and like do the mirrors move? Don't snap the mirrors off. It was amazing to have this place to myself, and we were in there for about an hour. So it was. If you can imagine going around the museum and seeing this stuff. Imagine when you're just in the room and it's just like, oh yeah, whatever. This is all our old crap that we haven't found a place for yet. Some old crap you've got here. Eventually, they sold the whole lot. Everything that was in that room got sold in a single sale to some Middle Eastern oil magnate. So hopefully, it's still a whole fleet. There's a room somewhere in Dubai that still has all those cars in one room.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So was it Prost's championship winning car that you were sat in, or was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a FW15C.
Yeah.
Because we were doing. They also. The other thing was that they brought in buckets of old parts. So they brought in a toy box, with an old VCM unit, vehicle control and monitoring. I don't know if Williams still employed that nomenclature, But it used to go on the side pod on the FW14 and 15. It went on the side pod of the car, and it had the voltage regulator on it and everything. And we were saying like, oh, at Spa in '91. You remember when Mansell just took the lead and then the car broke? Well, this part that failed. So we're looking at the actual bits. It was like this part blew up or shorted out or whatever, and we'd done it wrong. We'd soldered it wrong, or so you're getting this guided tour through historical events that cost them the title. And yeah, it was that was a very, very special day. And at the end,
sounds it, yeah.
when I was standing in the reception at the end, I was approached by a then unknown woman called Claire Williams, who was working in the press office at the time. We engaged small talk, and I was basically told her, so this has been quite a fun day. How often do you go in that storehouse? Never really. It's all gathering dust in there because we don't know what to do with it. Of course, they soon amended that. I wonder if they sold it as a direct response. Like, really, all this old junk, we need to do something with it.
That is just incredible. I mean,
there's a heritage program, isn't there? I wonder if all those cars are part of the Williams heritage program, sort of leased back to them almost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the details on it, but certainly the heritage program is great, and I know they've always been, Jonathan Williams particularly is an aficionado of Williams' own history, Frank Williams' son.
Yeah.
And when we've sat and chatted in the past, we've always had a great conversation because we're both absolute nerds, so we can talk on each other's nerdy level to in a way that we can't speak to everybody else. But yeah, he was always very, very cognizant of Williams' historical contributions.
Now that's a conversation we need to get on this podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, I highly recommend if you get Johnny Williams on the show, start talking about Williams' history, he'll talk your ear off.
I would actually love that. Because as I say, the FW14B for me was that was the car that Mansell drove. Mansell was my first Formula One hero. That was the car I wanted to win all the time, and yeah, it was the '92 season for me. Really was the first full season I can remember sort of being involved in and watching, and just to be actually sat in front of that car for an hour or so was just very special.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it was such a pioneering car. I don't want to get too bogged down in the history of this when we're talking about contemporary F1.
Of course, yeah.
But the things it brought to us. I mean, active suspension wasn't necessarily new. Mansell had driven it 9 years earlier on a Lotus and absolutely despised it. But it had finally reached that sort of technological maturity in '92, and it was also the first car with full-out traction control, which was activated on Riccardo Patresi's car at the first race in Kyalami off the start line. Mansell. Renault were concerned what it might do to the engine off the line, so they didn't activate it on Mansell's car at the start, but they did on Patresi's car, and Patresi was fourth on the grid. Mansell was on pole. Patresi was second into the first corner. He just went past the McLarens like they were nailed to the grid.
Yeah.
And after that, it was like, okay, no problems. It didn't cause the misfiring, didn't cause any problems with the block, so away we go.
That's fantastic. Well, if anyone's in contact with Jonathan Williams, if you can sort of point him in our direction,
yeah, we'll get him on.
We'll definitely love to have him on the show.
You call the Williams reception, man. You use your initiative. God damn it.
Chris,
just say, can I speak to call Williams? Say, can I speak to Johnny Williams? We want to have a bit of a conversation about heritage and just have a geek fest about old school Williams. Okay. And he will. I'm sure he will say, "Oh, when do you need me? When can we do it?"
I'll get onto that this week because
you are the one that's managed to get George Russell and Lando Norris on this show. So
right, that should be a segment. You should record the conversation. You'd have that as a segment in the show. We're going to call Williams now. Cold call them. See if we can get Johnny Williams.
Well,
away we go. And if you can't do that, offer him some buffalo cauliflower and
by post.
That's sorted.
Yeah, I did manage to contact somebody high up at Red Bull for management at Red Bull to come on the show as well. But then guess what? They're never free. Never. Their schedules are always full. So... Yeah,
such is life. I don't think they're avoiding you on purpose. It really does get like that.
Of course,
sometimes.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. They're booked months, if not years, in advance.
You would think all that energy drink gives them more time.
Apparently not.
Well, they'll all be drinking rich energy now because they'll be trying to get rid of the consignment that showed up at their door in Milton Keynes as a trolling exercise from William Story.
It's still on sale in our local.
Oh, is it? It's
yes.
still there? No.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they still have some cans with the old logo on in the fridge behind the bar. I noticed that last Thursday when we were in there winning the pub quiz.
True story.
Just point out.
Just saying. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Three of the people in this room won the pub quiz last week. Chris, where were you?
The
What, last
fourth was
Thursday?
last.
Last Thursday, I was probably... I can't remember, actually. I can't remember what I was doing last Thursday. No
Paralytic.
idea. No, I wish. No.
Wired off your head on all that rich energy that they sell in the pub.
Probably.
We'd send you a can over, but I don't think you're allowed to send it by post because it's possibly dangerous chemical.
It also doesn't actually
Well,
exist.
It
I've
does
actually drank
exist.
it. I drank it. I drank it at the racetrack, so I know it exists. And it just tastes like it tastes like
An energy
weaker
drink.
version. It tastes like a weaker version of Red Bull. It's not the flavor's not as intense, but it's fine as a drink. It's fine. It's not offensive as a drink.
It's okay.
Wouldn't have. Yeah, it's okay.
It's been an interesting story, that, hasn't it? Unfolding throughout the year, the whole Rich Energy sponsorship thing.
We're convinced they're making a film. Like the only way this can all make sense is if somebody said at the start of the season, so we're setting out to make a secret film about how far we can go with a completely fabricated sponsor. So
Do you
let's
think-
see what we can do.
Do you think they're going to pull the mask off William's story and it was the KLF all along?
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's what it'll be.
That's
And I
why.
would have got away with it, but for you pesky kids.
That's why the pub near us is the only place that you can buy Rich Energy, because they've deliberately planted it near an F1 podcast and thought if they see it, they'll think it's real.
Exactly. It's you and the Automobile Club de Monaco, the two places that were critically important in this whole route.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Who needs Lee for conspiracy theories?
No. Don't need Lee at all for conspiracy theories. Goodness me.
Oh, shall we move on to somewhere where there won't be Rich Energy this week, because that'll be the Singapore Grand Prix, and of course it will not be on the Haas cars.
Good segue.
Can I just add? Romain Grosjean, for the second time in his career, is going to the Singapore Grand Prix with a team that's lost its title sponsor. Because 10 years ago he was at Renault, who then lost ING before the Singapore Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And in that race, Renault scored their only podium of the season, thanks to Fernando Alonso. So, smart money, Kevin Magnussen, quick tenner on him for the podium in Singapore to end Haas's run of whatever it is, like a 76 Grand Prix without a podium finish ever in their F1 history. 78 Grand Prix, it says here. 76 Grand Prix so far. They're only two short of Dallara. Dallara had 78 Grand Prix without a podium finish. Dallara actually make the Haas chassis.
They build them, don't
So-
they? So
Yes, there's some weird statistical crossovers going on with Haas, Singapore, Grosjean, and so on.
I think I might alter my predictions that we're going to do later.
Has anyone? Yeah, we have a prediction, a
We have a
podium
prediction
prediction game.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also Kevin Magnussen is actually the lap record holder in Singapore as well.
Good lord.
It's the only racetrack on which a Haas holds the lap record is Singapore.
There are 4 very stunned expressions in this room right now.
Yeah.
Is anyone else wishing Lee was actually on this podcast tonight?
He would lose his shit at that, wouldn't he?
Kevin Magnussen holds that record for Singapore. There's a stat I didn't actually know. It's a fairly straightforward one as well.
You are welcome.
Wow. So, yes, we have the original night race this weekend. Always a good one to watch.
Usually, it doesn't. It has pulled some fairly mundane races out of the bag occasionally, but usually it's quite exciting. Less so since they got rid of the Singapore Sling, which is 6-7 years ago now. But the no cars taking off over those curbs. But you usually get some pretty good races. I guess just what you get with the street circuit under night lights, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as slow as Monaco.
No.
The street circuits go. You can get a little bit of speed up there, but it's going to be a challenging one because it's not all power. It's definitely, I'd say, more towards the chassis side of things. And I think we've possibly seen the end of Ferrari's little run of dominance.
Possibly.
Quite possibly, yeah. Can I interject? I don't want to.
course.
By all
Yeah.
means, by all means.
Don't want to completely dominate the conversation, but it is. You are right that the fast tracks do favour Ferrari, and this is emphatically not a fast track. last year's race in Singapore was the first Grand Prix ever held at Marina Bay where the average winning speed was over 100 miles an hour. That's how slow it is.
Oh, right. Okay.
And on, I think, 3 occasions, the race has been cut short due to the 2-hour limit, which isn't a problem in Monaco because they actually only do 160 miles in Monaco. But when you're doing the normal F1 distance, 190, at this slow of a speed, it's very difficult to get it in under 2 hours. And the reason why we keep hitting the 2-hour limit is because of all the safety car. There's never been a Singapore Grand Prix at Marina Bay without a safety car. So the timing of that intervention can really make or break a race. Most famously in the first one, of course, when Alonso benefited from Crashgate to win the race from 15th on the grid, which, incidentally, I found this out the other day for the first time. That is the only Grand Prix in the history of the World Championship that has been won from 15th on the grid. Who knew that?
So all you need to do to win from 15th is cheat.
Yes.
Good.
But yes, it's true that qualifying is everything. In 3 of the last 4 years, the cars qualifying 1, 2, 3 on the grid have finished 1, 2, 3 in the race in the same order. And the exception to those 4 years was 2017 when the front row and Verstappen wiped out within 100 yards of the start.
Which was clearly Max Verstappen's fault if you listen to Ferrari.
Obviously, yes. The only time Ferrari have lost both cars on the first lap of a Grand Prix ever.
Yep.
But yes, it is. It means qualifying is obviously going to be. Qualifying is always important, but especially here. Last year we only had something like 5 overtaking moves in the race, so that was tied for the least with Albert Park, and everybody knows, Albert Park. Everybody complains about Albert Park's inability to generate good racing. Singapore is the same. So much of what they do has to be geared towards Saturday. Anybody who gets engine power unit penalties, gearbox penalties, or holding people up penalties is really getting penalised at this racetrack.
Which I think is why we've seen quite a lot of teams get the penalties out of the way over the last couple of races before this one.
Yes, I'm sure that's related to it.
Yeah, I mean, all 4 Hondas are now running on new power units that they've taken the penalties for. I think both McLarens have changed them recently as well.
Racing Points, I think, have.
Yeah, and there have been changes with
Lando Norris.
Yeah, Williams, but Kubica didn't have any choice because everything went foom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is going to be a tricky one. We're going to have a stab at making predictions.
No, Lee has made predictions.
We've got a guest predictor as well. Would you like to join in with being a guest predictor for this week as well, Sean?
Oh, go on then.
Right. While I'm finding the one I've been sent in, I will let you go first.
We just do the top 3.
You want me to go first?
If you want to go first, what you think your top 3 is going to be?
Or shall we put Lee's out there first?
That's the usual rule: is whoever couldn't be asked turning up to the podcast goes first.
Which tonight is definitely Lee. Okay, he is going for a Verstappen win, Hamilton second, Albon third.
Which I think is brave.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Singapore, with it being fairly warm there, even though it's a night circuit, might not suit the Mercedes too well.
There's logic there, I suppose. Would you agree with that, Sean?
I'm not going to influence the picks here. I'm going last.
Are you going last?
You're going to go last.
Right.
Who's going next then?
Well, we'll do our listener guest prediction. This week, with it being this week being the 5th anniversary of us founding the 3 Legs 4 Wheels site, although it took us 6 months to do the first podcast, because it all came about because of a conversation about the first Formula E race, actually.
It did, yeah.
So this is one of our original listeners from when we first started doing this one. There was 4 of us clustered around one mic. But in fact, 3 of us clustered around one microphone because it was before Dan joined.
Yeah. It was.
So Rich Walker, long-time listener, possibly the longest.
Yep.
He is going for a Hamilton win, Charles Leclerc second, and Verstappen third.
Okay. I don't think the Ferrari's going to cut it so well, but we'll see.
So we're saying no to Ferrari and no to Mercedes.
Well, he's running quite.
Someone's got to be up there.
Kevin Magnussen.
He's running quite well, isn't he, after his 2 wins? But I'm not sure he can carry the momentum through to to the podium in Singapore. It's possible, of course it is, but shenanigans can happen.
So I think I was going to go for the same 3 drivers there, but in a slightly different order. I was going to go Verstappen for a win, Leclerc second, and Hamilton third.
Okay. Better write Hamilton down because I forgot to write third place.
Do you want mine?
You go next, Chris, if you want.
I'll go Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas.
Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas. Dan, do you want to go?
I'll go Hamilton. No, I won't. I'll go Verstappen, Leclerc, Albon.
Right, and I think I will go for... I'm going to go a Red Bull 1-2. I am going to go Verstappen, Albon, and Hamilton. Sean, you've heard all ours now. What do you reckon?
Well, Sean, what were your 3 picks? Did I hear Verstappen,
Verstappen,
Leclerc,
Hamilton.
Right, that's exactly my top 3, and I'll explain why. The Red Bull have obviously
Sean,
changed.
I should just warn you, I am very much last in our league for predictions.
Well, I guess I'm not very good at predicting either, because I would have made millions from my stats otherwise, rather than just a few pennies here and there. But here's the reason why I go for that. Verstappen's been on the front row in Singapore the last 2 years in a row. Red Bull have started in the top 3 for 10 consecutive years in Singapore. Not only that, but this is also the only track on which Red Bull have finished either first or second in every race held in this decade. So Red Bull were always a force on this track, no matter how bad the Renault/Tag Heuer engine was. They now don't have that. So I think this race will come to Red Bull, particularly Max Verstappen. That would be my main theory there. And the reason I would put Leclerc ahead of Hamilton is because although Mercedes took pole here in 2014 and 2016 and 2018, in the interval years of 2015 and 2017, they were only 5th and 6th on the grid. So their performance tends to be rather erratic on this track. Sometimes it's great for them, and then other years it's not. So on that basis, I put Leclerc in front of Hamilton.
Seems logical.
That makes sense. If you want to join in with the predictions and you're listening to this, then if you go to the website 3legs4wheels.com, go to the game section and just click on Prediction League 2019 and you put in your top 3. But also on there, you can also predict pole and fastest lap. And you've got until 5 minutes before Q1 starts on Saturday to get that in.
Any particular interesting stats that you might be able to let us have now, Sean, about Singapore?
Well, not to darken the mood slightly, but there's one statistic I want to bring up which no one seems to have done yet, but I'm sure will come up this weekend, and that is that race day in Singapore would have been Antoine Hubert's 23rd birthday, and I hope and think that there will be some sort of acknowledgement, commemoration of that, because obviously the after effect of that crash is still with us, and Juan Manuel Correa is still fighting in a hospital in London, I believe, against the injuries he suffered in that accident. But I hope there's some sort of commemoration of Hubert, who was not just some run of the mill driver. He was the GP3 champion, so he was going places. And it's been tough for French motorsport, who of course had already lost Jules Bianchi, and then lost Hubert as well before either of them could realise their full potential.
Just on the subject of Juan Manuel Correa, his family, I don't know if anybody's seen this, but his family have invited fans and friends to email supportive messages to him at info@jmcorrea.com. So if anybody's listening and wants to just send him a few words of support, pop an email to him. His family have actually asked for this.
Who wouldn't want to? We should all really get onto that.
And we're all hoping for a swift and full recovery.
Definitely. And I think that, like you say, Sean, there has to be some kind of tribute to Antoine Hubert this weekend. I'm sure we'll do something in our own way during the race.
Yeah, it'd be kind of nice, if there was some acknowledgement maybe on the lap 23, because it would have been his 23rd birthday. Hubert, incidentally, was born on the day of the 96 Portuguese Grand Prix, that famous race when Jacques Villeneuve went around the outside of Michael Schumacher at the last corner. So that really highlights how brief his life was. That, he's no longer with us, but he was born that day. It's, yeah.
Wow.
What can you say? It's how,
still remember that pass to this day.
yeah, that was the day Hubert was born. So I hope, I guess the best time to do it would be lap 23 of the Singapore Grand Prix, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it was a fan initiated lap 19 applause, wasn't it, at Spa, because that was the number that he raced with. So let's
spread the word and
see if this
start
goes
something for
anywhere.
lap 23.
Yeah.
We'll credit Sean for that one.
I'm sure they'll do something. But checking the Twitter sphere, no one's brought it up yet. But I've included it at the top of my notes in the pack that I provide to broadcasters. There's a page that actually has bullet points for each session. So it's like, okay, I haven't got time to read all of this nonsense. Just give me the things I absolutely need to know right now, and that's top of the list on for the race start information. Today would have been Antoine Hubert's birthday, so you can expect that to come up in the broadcast this weekend, no matter where you're watching in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a terrible accident, and it should be commemorated in some way.
Yeah, definitely a life that needs celebrating.
Yeah.
Feels almost wrong to do another total shunt after that, but I think we should.
Yeah.
Let's lighten things up. Ready for another shunt?
Bring them on.
Right. Just like you did with the predictions on this one, Sean, you're guessing last.
Okay.
So is this a normal standard
This
one?
is a normal standard total shunt, so I want guesses after 3, 6, and 10 clues.
Yeah, no worries.
So, first clue, this is from David Book, by the way. First clue, I was born in 1962.
Okay.
I won the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring in 1989.
Well, that's probably Sean got it already, I would think.
I'm not very good on sports cars.
So that'd be someone who was 27?
27 when they won the Nürburgring
Okay.
sports cars, yeah.
Third clue, I'll need a guess after this one. I was the German touring car champion in 1996.
I know who it is.
Is it Frank Bieler? Wasn't he German touring car champion in 96? Possibly.
Can I guess?
Well, you can put the guess in, and we'll see if you're right at the end.
No. Was it, is either Frank Bieler or Gabriele Tarquini?
So which one are you going for to bank your first guess with?
I'll go with Gabriele Tarquini.
Okay, so that one's from you. And Sean, your first guess you're going for?
Manuel Reuter.
Okay.
So that's who it is then.
Yeah, weren't Tarquini and Frank Bieler both in British touring cars
They
around
were,
then?
but Gabriele Tarquini definitely went to German touring cars, and Frank Bieler, I think, he may still have been in British touring cars at that point. He came from German touring cars, I think.
Can I just say there are still 7 more clues to go,
Okay.
and you may or may not have heard the right answer.
Okay.
So we have.
Clue 4. I own a 5-star hotel in the Dolomites called the Faloria Mountain Spa Resort.
Okay. Well, the Dolomites are Italian mountains.
Yes.
So that goes with my Gabriele Tarquini, but I'm not going to go against Sean.
Fifth clue, I won the 24 Hour of Le Mans 5 times. 2000, 2001, 2002, 2006 and 2007.
Okay, no idea.
And
It's a fair chunk after winning 24 Hours of Nürburgring.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not Manuel Reuter, who I think only won it once.
And clue 6 is where you get to do another guess. I raced in F1 for 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's Gabriele Tarquini. I think
Tarquini raced more years than that.
Did he?
Yeah, because he made his debut Imola 87. The last race was Nürburgring 95. Not that I'm freestyling.
Maybe it's.
I'm intrigued by this because you said German Touring Car Championship in 1996, didn't you?
Yes.
Now, what confused me here is that You mean the German Super Touring Championship?
I'm only going on what the question says.
Because the DTM, there was no DTM in '96. It was the International Touring Car Championship. So what was the German Touring Car Championship became the ITC just in '95 and '96. So I assumed you meant that. That's what spun me out.
Probably should have done a bit more research. We'll continue on here.
Well, we can only read the clues out as they're given
Yeah.
to us.
Clue 7. In 2019, I became president of the F1 Grand Prix Drivers Club.
What? The Drivers Association or Drivers Club?
It says Drivers Club down here.
Okay.
Because the president of the Drivers Association is Grosjean, is it not? Which would not in any way fit any other
I think
clue.
he's chairman, isn't
Is
he?
he chairman? I don't know
Chairman and
what
president are
weird
different
title he gives
titles.
himself.
And I get the feeling this is going to be one. This is going to be the one where Sean gets it, but we'll see. My best F1 race result was 5th in the 1989 Australian Grand Prix.
Okay, yeah, I do know who that is.
Fifth
But
in-
I'm still perplexed by this German touring car bit from '96. That's what got me before. Like, what?
Is it even? Do you think that clue might be right on any level, Sean?
I don't know. I have to call a steward's inquiry on this. I will have to get.
wouldn't be the
What I'm going to
first
do
time.
is I'm going to get Michele Molino and David Hayhoe and João Paulo back in the room and say, "Listen, lads, here's the thing."
Yeah. You see, now I know we were talking about the 89th and 90th running of the Italian Grand Prix, but this is far more important. Who was the 1996 German touring car champion?
What was the German touring
Yeah,
car
what
championship?
was the? Yeah.
Well, I now know who this is. I now know who the correct answer is going to be. So I'm going to go and I'm going to have a look at German Super Touring in '96. So you carry on, and I'll get back to you here.
Okay.
Right. Clue 9. My first F1 race was in the 1989 French Grand Prix, replacing an injured Johnny Herbert.
1989 French Grand Prix.
He wasn't injured. He was dropped. He wasn't
Wounded
injured.
pride.
He was dropped by Flavio Briatore.
And yes, it was the Super Touring wagon.
Okay. See,
Different championship.
slightly different.
Yeah, German Super Touring Wagon Cup. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly the Spaffer, I think, on this one. I was the driver steward for the 2019 Canadian Grand Prix.
Stunned silent.
Yeah. can't
Come on,
remember.
how many people have you sent death threats to on Twitter? It's that guy.
There's so many that doesn't narrow it down.
Of course, the 2019 Canadian Grand Prix being the
Vettel.
the Vettel incident.
Yeah.
Was it was it Pirro? Was it Emmanuel Pirro?
It was.
Yes. I can't believe I got that on the last clue.
Thanks for sending that one in, David. That's great. If you want to send a total shunt,
Of course, Sean already knew it.
Sean already got there. I think that was clue 7 you got there, and Sean, or was it?
Yeah, I would say full disclosure. I might have got it after the Le Mans one, but the German touring car / super touring thing, because there was 2 German series. You see it, so I got the wrong one. Because there was in '95 there was German super touring and German touring car DTM, and also Manuel Reuter was born in '61, apparently December '61. So when he said born in '62, I had the right.
Ooh,
I had the right type
yeah.
person. So.
Yeah, you were
So there we go.
there or thereabouts with it made sense.
Other than being completely wrong, I almost had it right.
And it somehow took me remembering something that happened in May. Bearing in mind we're now middle of September.
Yeah. And by the way, that you mentioned Paul Ricard 89. That was the debut race for the Ford HB engine, the engine that would become the customer choice of early 90s F1.
Yeah.
That was the very first race that it was used for Benetton. I think Pirro had a DFR, but Nannini had the HB, which is a
okay.
completely different engine design. And Pirro was promoted by Briatore because Briatore, become the boss at Benetton, decided that Johnny Herbert wasn't much cop, so he ditched him, put Pirro in the car instead. And Pirro wasn't terribly impressive, I must say, other than Hockenheim. He had a good race at Hockenheim that year, but yeah, very much Briatore's boy.
That explains a lot. Right, so if you want to send a total shunt, you can usually send a direct message on Twitter to Lee, who is at a total shunt.
Yeah.
Or, seeing as I've used 2 from the reserve pile tonight, drop an email and I'll get that 3legs4wheels@gmail.com. If you want to get hold of the rest of us, you can get the show at 3legs4wheels, and individually we are
At Sean Cowper.
At Flood21.
At Dan Dankleton.
at Pablo100, and of course, Sean, you are...
At Virtual Statman.
Only thing that remains to say is just a quick reminder about the current Formula Lee Challenge. Singapore in a Ferrari in the dry, and you've got until next Monday after the race to get the times in. You know how to do that. Facebook message, email, send me a message on PlayStation Network if you're on there. And we'll see who comes out on top. Sean, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a blast as always.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
Always. Really
Anytime.
good to have
You know that you're always welcome, and if you can bring Jonathan Williams with you next time.
No, I'm going to get
I
on
mean,
this week.
I'll give it my best shot.
We'll even send him the buffalo cauliflower.
Yes, I'll tell you what. If he's in Mexico City, I'm not going to be at the track again until Mexico City. So, if by some miracle he should show up, I shall rugby tackle him and bring him to a microphone.
Well, if you're at the track in Mexico, if you fancy doing one of the previews on the Friday or the Saturday before, let us know, and we'll do another of our little preview shows with you as well if you're available.
Yeah, I'll do a roving report today. 3 Legs and 4 Wheels comes to you live from the Lucha Libre taco store right outside the Mexico City circuit.
They do
yeah.
buffalo cauliflower.
They sure as hell will when I get there.
Sure, buffalo cauliflower tacos are the best tacos.
Yes,
Mexicans just don't know it yet.
It's a real sleeper here. I mean, I'm here in San Diego, so I'm right on the border with Mexico. So we've got outstanding Mexican food around here. I'd like to think that I was a good person to judge the taste test on that one.
We'll look up the recipes and we'll find the best one and stick it on the site at some point.
There you go. You see, I love the willingness to be diverse. That's what I appreciate about you guys.
I didn't know we did a recipe section.
We do now.
We didn't until
great.
about 2 minutes ago.
You're not here.
It's great. It's turning into like morning television.
Yeah.
You know, we've done hard hitting politics. We've done life and death. We've done actual racing. We've got a cookery segment.
Yeah.
We need an aerobics segment.
And now over to Dan with the weather.
Yes, and then the weather. Yes.
Yeah, this is our one show interviewing Bruce Forsyth about knife crime moment. That was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
The most surreal 5 minutes of TV ever. Right, we'll be online at the weekend. I'll be doing the qualifying blog. Myself, Chris, and Sean will be doing the live race blog. Dan will be riding 2 laps around the TT course.
Dan will actually be racing.
Slowly.
It's endurance. It's it's 3 marathons, not a sprint.
Yeah.
77 miles?
Give or take, yeah. 2 mountains.
Yeah.
On the bike, on a motorbike.
No, on a push bike.
Oh, okay. Well, it's much more my territory because, of course, I do triathlons. So
Yeah. Have you done one recently,
Yeah.
Sean? Or you,
I did a sprint triathlon a couple of weeks ago. I'm thinking about doing the Ironman in Arizona, which is the week in between Brazil and Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
So if I did it, I'd then have to go directly to Abu Dhabi and spend like 15 hours on an aircraft scrunched up after doing an Ironman. I'm not sure my legs are up to it, but it would be rather cool to rock up in the paddock at Yas Marina with my Ironman medal. Say,
Yeah.
scoreboard, bitches. Yes, thank you.
What will that be? Will that be the 4th Ironman you've done?
It would be, yeah.
Impressive. Let us know how that one goes. Right, we'll be back next week. We'll have the whatever happens in Singapore to talk about, and probably a hell of a lot more besides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.